I think when you look at B2B, I don't want to like be over dramatic, but like we're still stuck in the Stone Ages as it relates to experience and speed and
Checks.
When you talk to
ACH.
enterprise, ACH.
Wire transfer.
I think when you talk to certain banks, when they hear real time, some companies get nervous. I mean, the thought immediately goes to, well, float. Are we not sort of profiting from slower payments and from latency? And I think the answer is...
Hello everyone, welcome again to the Paysend Series. Today is our first episode of 2025. And what a better way to start than to talk about something that is very important and passionate for me. The topic of businesses navigating global cross-border payments. I'm Jairo Riveros, Managing Director of Paysend, but most important, very passionate about Paysend. So I'm very happy to be joined today by no one better than Justin.
Thanks for the intro and the tee up. So my name is Justin. I sit in San Francisco and I lead our North America and global sales and partnerships for Visa Direct, which is Visa's global money movement platform.
Thank you so much, Justin. This is amazing. Today from the Visa Global Headquarters in Mission, San Francisco Bay Area, a beautiful place. I'm very excited also to be joined by our recently new member, Rick.
Hi everyone, Rick Castello here, Head of Enterprise Sales for the Americas at Paysend. As Jairo mentioned, I'm fairly new to the company, but not to payments. So I've been in payments my entire career, which is approaching 20 years.
Fantastic. I would like to set a little bit of the space. What are we thinking when we say enterprise payments? It's a business that is about $200 trillion today, expected to be around 300 by 2030. So I would like to start by sharing a little bit of what you think are the pain points, what companies need to or are facing when they make payments cross-border, when they need to pay for either a supplier or they need to be paid for their products or services. What can you share with us in that sense?
No, I think that's a great question. I think there's tons of trends that are impacting the ecosystem here in the US and globally today as it relates to money movements, both domestic and cross-border. When you look first at speed, I think it's the most basic thing a lot of us think about when we think about sort of our core value proposition and how we serve the ecosystem. Cross-border payments are slow.
Yeah.
And it's a poor experience, whether you're a consumer, an individual, a business, a small business, an enterprise.
Especially if you do it on a Friday after 3 p.m. and there is a Monday holiday.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I mean, that's self-explanatory. I think the speed pain point is relevant no matter what type of business we're talking about, what type of payment flow. I think as you talk about transparency, this is something that oftentimes people don't think about unless you're sitting in a treasury department of a bank, you're the accounts payable manager at an enterprise. The payment disappears and no one knows when and where it's going to show up and honestly how much is going to show up at the end. So I think the opaqueness of the systems today that we use for, domestic and cross-border, but especially in cross-border, I think is... there's a lot to be improved, I think.
Like a black box.
It's a black box. Yeah. And I think most importantly, when we think about a lot of the pain points and, where I find myself having the most conversations, it's ostensibly about cost. Everyone wants to talk about cost, but not cost in the way people, I think, often think about it, which is like a unit cost, which obviously there's a unit cost to moving money. And, it is high, especially in places like the US. When you think about overall cost to serve and you think about growing and scaling the business, the plethora of partners that you need to engage with and interact with, manage operations, when you think about like global money movement and you as a US-based business that wants to expand to new markets or even just manage suppliers in multiple markets, the cost goes exponentially higher as you expand, which is why the cost to serve and the cost to manage that network is something that businesses aren't exactly thinking about all the time, but becomes very apparent on their balance sheets as you look in the long term. So I think those are three of the key pain points that I think I see.
Amazing, Justin. So let me recap. Number one, you said speed. Number two, transparency. And number three, cost.
Yes, cost. But big C, capital C cost.
Capital C cost. Let's talk a little bit about, because these are not new pain points.
No.
This has been around.
Absolutely.
Has anybody done something about it? Or what are the trends? What's happening? What are we seeing happening to try to solve for this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at it, right? So when it comes to cross-border payouts, there's a couple of things, right? It's going on the appropriate rails. It's routing transactions specific. There's the Visa network as well that'll happen instantly. For example, one thing that we're doing very well at Paysend is, I want to say maybe 90% plus of our push to cards, payout to cards, happen within seconds, right? So there are things, and Visa Direct is one of those things that has drastically changed how Swift works today, because Visa makes it instant, easy, seamless, which, by the way, then has a drastic effect on the consumer, the payee. So the person receiving their money, they love it. I have my payment in seconds. So you're right, this is a long story of pain points for many, many years. But again, to Visa's testament with Visa Direct, I think that's the step right there.
Justin, tell us, is this for consumer, for businesses, for both? What are you seeing and how Visa plays a role in?
No, and I'm glad you asked that, because that's exactly where I was going to go in terms of like the trends and innovation and what we've seen in the market. I think, as you see quite frequently in most industries, consumer payments evolve at a much faster pace than sort of the B2B back end side of the payments. And you'll see a lot of the innovation sort of move from one side of the fence to the other, which is why I think the Paysend sort of core business and how you guys grew makes a ton of sense. I think when you look at innovation in the consumer side of the ecosystem, it's an arms race of experience. Like, the most streamlined user experience is the one that wins. Obviously, there's a cost component, but speed, global reach, things like getting access to digital wallets, where we know there's been, in the emerging world, Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, the trend to jump straight to wallets, that came to the consumer ecosystem very quickly. Things like real-time traceability, seamless credential capture. I think we've seen a ton of innovation and development on the consumer side, Paysend being among the companies that have really pushed the envelope forward. I think when you look at B2B, I don't want to be over dramatic, but we're still stuck in the Stone Ages as it relates to experience and speed. And I think when you talk to certain banks and
Checks,
when you talk to enterprise, ACH,
wire transfers.
when they hear real time, some companies get nervous. I mean, the thought immediately goes to, well, float. Are we not sort of profiting from slower payments and from latency? And I think the answer is yes, in certain scenarios, but really no. I mean, as you think about the increasingly competitive environment in B2B, and, I think if you talk to any VC in the ecosystem, if you talk to where the money is flowing, where the innovation is coming, where the companies are popping up, heavily skewing now from consumer fintech to business fintech, because people are realizing there's so many opportunities to streamline and make the experience, the scale, the rails, and up-level everything, that increasingly we're going to see more competition in the B2B space. And the companies that are on the forefront of investment, partnering with players like Paysend, single providers that can give you access and scale globally, they're the ones that are going to have a competitive advantage to serving the businesses that they serve.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, businesses, is just for big, large corporations, or applies to also small and medium-sized businesses, which are core to many economies worldwide?
Yeah. I would say all, of course. Large enterprises, but equally as important to the small to medium-sized business that wants to scale. It's all about finding the right partner, like a Paysend with a Visa Direct. The ease of integration, right? Is there a white label solution? Is there different flavors of an integration? Because a lot of these small to medium-sized businesses, of course, they're not the monsters like Visa is today. They don't have massive amounts of resources. So, but to answer your question, Jairo, absolutely. So any type of business that needs and wants to move money globally can benefit from a partnership like Paysend and Visa Direct together.
When you think about who can benefit from what we've been talking about, I actually think the very large enterprise, like let's say the Walmarts of the world, there are absolutely areas of optimization for them as well, but they get all the attention from the biggest global treasury banks, where if you go even just a little bit downstream, all of a sudden you don't have 200 people in your payments department and your technology department. And managing things like FX, managing a payment rail to an exotic like Vietnam, all of a sudden it becomes cost prohibitive to optimize that experience, that route, that float. And so I think as you go just a layer down from like the largest global enterprises, there's tremendous opportunity in the middle market and certainly in SMB. And you think about some of the use cases that we serve and some of the client segments. Obviously, we support a lot of the big global, e-com platforms, some of the biggest global banks. If you look at just some of the logos that we have signed over the past 12 to 18 months, we support eBay and Airbnb. We have large global treasury banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, et cetera. But I think when it comes to consumer money movement, obviously remittances are a massive opportunity here in the US and still growing, and these flows are still expensive. And there are a lot of diasporas that are still underserved. When you look at e-com platforms and marketplaces, any sort of digital platform with two ends, whether it's a gig economy platform, whether it's a online marketplace and everything in between, even what we were chatting about earlier, gaming, not gambling gaming, but gaming platforms, platforms that grew up inherently digital with consumers, customers, suppliers that are also inherently global because they grew up online. You need global supply chains, you need global payments, you need global money movement. And that really, I think, is an area of massive opportunity. It's pretty generic global digital platforms, but it's a space that is seeing tons of growth, I think.
And goes back to speed, transparency, and that big sea of cost.
Yeah. And global reach.
Global reach.
Yeah, completely agree there. I think for the verticals, I guess you could say, that we are tracking at Paysend and we're doing alongside of the partnership with Visa would be just that. Banks, which, if you think about money movement, the way we operate day to day, right, is customer first, merchant partner, customer first, mind frame. And I think a lot of the banks need to transition to do that in the sense that they need to think about their customer, which is the end payee as well. Who's getting paid? How am I paying it out? Through their banking mobile app. So, that's where things like the float, like you mentioned, should be, in my mind, a little bit secondary, right? It's first, how do we do this for our customers? Speed, making it fast, making it quick. And I'm happy to say, having gone to the Visa Payments Forum in Dallas and a couple of other shows over the last couple of weeks, I think that trend is there. I think the banks now are saying, we need to do this better. We can do it better with partnerships with the Paysend and Visa Direct. And I think it's heading in that right direction.
Excellent. You mentioned partnerships. This is in a space in which you all need to collaborate, co-create, work together.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about what's happening between Visa and Paysend. What are we doing together to solve for these pain points, to bring some of these trends and developments to market?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start.
Do it,
and then,
please,
I think there's a lot that we could talk about here.
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
it's a whole other session right there. That's another episode.
We spent hours, but I'll be quick. I think
There will be episode 2. Don't worry.
Part 2 coming.
I think fundamentally, when you look at sort of what Visa Direct is and what we're a network in the back. We have a lot of the infrastructure for the global money movement, whether that's moving money to a card or even pulling money from a card, sending it to an account, to a wallet. Obviously, we were talking about the virtual account ledgers, offering global collections, real-time money conversion, being able to hold and convert in 30 plus currencies. And there's a lot of capabilities that we have on the network, but we rely on partners to integrate to our network and then build everything around that and really be the integration point for any business, any bank that wants to gain access to our rails. And that's really where Paysend comes in. Paysend, obviously, leading market provider in terms of technology, in terms of compliance, in terms of ops, all that you need to do as a business or a bank to move money without thinking about the complexity, the regulatory environment, all of the challenges that it takes, especially in this market in the US, to move money internationally. Paysend takes care of all of that and has access to our global reach. And that is why I think this partnership is so important, especially here in North America, where there are tremendous opportunities to provide value for our clients and our business partners through a partner like Paysend. You really need a partner that is global. If you're talking about global money movement, you want a partner that can travel with you wherever you want to go. Visa is obviously global, but so is Paysend. And I think that is a really critical factor as you evaluate sort of the ecosystem of partners that you might have when you want to move money globally. And I think that's also a very unique and differentiating factor of our partnership with Paysend.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the future for a little bit. 2-3 years from now, what would you like to see in the global money movement happening?
In my world, I would say, some trends and how things are evolving would be around stablecoins. When I'm speaking to partners whether it's a bank or a merchant like an Airbnb, a travel, an OTA, stablecoin seems to be at the top of, or one of the top priorities there, right? And so being able to send, to via stablecoin using digital wallets that enable stablecoin as well, it's on our radar for sure.
No, absolutely. It's something, honestly, we talk about every single day.
Yeah.
And there's only so much I can say right now, but, Jack, our chief strategy officer, our CPO, just released a long statement yesterday that helps elucidate some of the finer points on Visa's orientation towards stablecoin. But suffice it to say that we are heavily invested in looking at the ecosystem. We too, I think, believe that it is a part of the future of global money movements. And, hopefully, like you guys, we'll be able to, talk about that in more detail with more, concrete examples very soon. But we already play in the space. I mean, if you look at card settlement, we can already settle on stablecoin. When you look at the entire digital asset ecosystem, Visa Direct actually supports a very there's a double negative, a not insignificant portion of the fiat on-ramp flows to the crypto and digital asset ecosystem. And there's a lot more that we are working on in that space that I would love to chat about. But I think in the future, even just in the near-term future, I think some of the immediate business impacts that we can make to some of those segments where I think cross-border money movement is underserved. And, we were chatting about this earlier today is one small example of a client segment I know we're both focused on. When you look at regional and community banks, even some of the super regional banks with any type of retail arm, if you look 20 years ago, remittances out of the U.S. were 70+% done by your bank and by the banks.
Yeah.
And that has totally flipped thanks to, obviously, players like Paysend that have really entered the space. But I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to, go to these banks, allow them to repatriate some of those flows, open up truly new revenue streams where this is a current environment for the banks where I think any new revenue stream that they have is, going to go to the top of their list. And we can do so in partnership with a player like Paysend who eats, lives, sleeps, and breathes international remittances and really empower the banks to win back some of those flows. And I think if you look at any client vertical that we're focused on, I think I could tell you a story of where I think we could be in 2 or 3 years that would be impactful to those businesses, whether it's the back end, the front end, the client experience, streamlining their operations, allowing them to scale globally. And we could do so, in partnership with you guys.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Well, I've been very happy to share this space with you today, with my two guests here. Justin, thank you so much for hosting us at your offices here. Thank you, Rick, for joining Paysend and for bringing...
You're welcome, Jairo. My pleasure.
See us next time.